The board game, chess. In this first lesson you will get to know the pieces and the board. A copy of a chessboard with the pieces in a book or here on the screen is called a diagram. Chess is an old board game. It probably comes from India, where it was already being played in the 5th century. Chess slowly spread all over Asia. It arrived in Europe at the time of the Crusades. Since then the rules have hardly changed. Chess is a game for 2 players. One player sits down behind the white pieces. We say he is playing white. His opponent plays black. The empty board. The chessboard has 64 equally sized boxes, arranged so that light and dark colored ones are always side by side. We call them squares. To avoid confusion, we always speak about white and black squares. It does not matter which color they really are, as long as you can see a difference between white, light, and black, dark. A chessboard should always be placed in front of us in the correct way. The bottom left corner square should always be black, and so on our bottom right-hand side there should be a white square. White on the right. The pieces. Both players, white and black, have 16 pieces at the start. In proper chess competitions, it is usually wooden pieces which are used. Plastic pieces can be used too and are cheaper. On the other hand, e.g., ivory pieces are usually just for show. The diagram shows you the starting position. This is the position from which a game of chess begins. Before we can play a proper game of chess, we have to learn a few things. Let's start with an introduction to the pieces. The king. The most important piece is the king, or in the original Persian version of the name the Shah. In a proper chess set you will recognize it immediately because of the cross on top of the piece. In diagrams in books and in this course, the king is represented by a large crown. Some people even say that the name of the game comes from the Persian word for king. The queen. The queen is the strongest piece in chess. This was not always true. In the start, on the other hand, it was not nearly as strong. It comes from the Persian vizier, a sort of chief minister. It was not till the 15th century that it changed from a weak piece to the strongest on the board. At the same time its name changed and it was called the queen. The rook. In chess there are 2 white and 2 black rooks which are placed in the corner squares. In the original version of chess, the rook was a war chariot, called a rock. In some languages it became known as a tower or castle because of the Italian word rocco, fortress. But in English we have remained true to the original name and called it a rook. The bishop. In the original game, the bishop was an elephant, which was portrayed with tusks which turned in towards each other. In Western Europe people didn't know much about elephants. That was reason enough for some confusion. In France people thought it looked like a jester's cap and so they called the piece a faux fool. English speakers thought it looked like a bishop's mitre, cap, and so called the piece a bishop. In the Netherlands, loper, and Germany, laufer, it got a name which was connected to the way it moved, runner. The knight. Both sides, white and black, also have 2 knights. The knights are the only pieces who have not changed much over the years. They always represented the cavalry, and looked like horses, riders or knights. The pawn. There are 8 white and 8 black pawns. They have always been the foot soldiers of the game. A foot soldier is often thought of as unimportant and we often speak of seemingly unimportant people as being pawns in a game. The black side. In the diagram you can see the starting position from the other side. This is how the player with black sees the position. The board and coordinates. What comes next is easy, but not the most exciting part of the course. For the next lessons it is useful to know a bit more about the chessboard. So, you should not skip this bit. The diagram contains more information. On the board there are now letters and numbers. To show exactly where a piece is positioned, each square has a name. The names are given the same way as they are on town plans and maps. We use coordinates on the left-hand side and at the bottom of the board. On the left, There are the numbers from 1 to 8, and at the bottom the letters A to H. The name of a square. We get the name of a square by first looking at the bottom of the board and then looking to the left. Below the board is the letter E, on the left the number 3. The name of the square, E3. The name of a square. Another example. We shall first look to the bottom and then to the left. Below the board is the letter F, on the left the number 6. The name of the square, F6. Naming all the squares. All the squares are identified by taking first the letter from below the board and adding to it the number from the left-hand side of the board. Files. It is not only the squares which have names. The squares which run vertically up and down the board are called files. There are 8 files. Each file has its own name. In the diagram the B file is displayed. There are also the A file, C file and so on till the H file. Ranks. The squares which run horizontally across the board are called ranks. The third rank is highlighted. There are 8 ranks, from the first rank to the 8th rank. Diagonals. We call all the squares which lie diagonally next to each other a diagonal. Diagonals vary in length. The shortest one consists of only 2 squares, the longest of 8. There are only 2 of these, A1/H8 is one of them. A little bit of counting will tell us that there are 26 different diagonals. In the diagram 3 of them are highlighted. A4/D1, A7/B8 and F1/H3. The starting position. At the end of the lesson we shall come back to the starting position. Take a good look at this position. With a little help, you have to place all the pieces on their correct squares. Summing up. Chess is played on a board with 64 squares, 32 white and 32 black. At the bottom of the board there are letters and on the left there are numbers. Things can be different on a real board, e.g. above and to the right. Each square has its name made up from a letter and a number, e.g. A7 or F3. Parts of the board also have names, files, ranks and diagonals. The players each sit at one side of the board. They either have the white or the black pieces. There are 6 different pieces, the king, the queen, the rook, the bishop, the knight and the pawn. All the pieces start off from their own specific square on the board, see diagram.